My parents didn't visit once during my cancer treatment, then started calling non-stop after I sold my startup for $50 million and it hit the news. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? Subscribe, say hi, and be part of our growing family. The fluorescent lights in Dr. Morrison's office buzzed like angry wasps as she slid the manila folder across her desk. Connie, it's stage 3 lymphoma. 6 words that shattered my 28 years of existence into a million irreparable pieces. My hands trembled as I gripped the armrests of that cold leather chair, the same chair where I'd sat 2 weeks earlier, convinced this was just stress from building my tech startup. How long do I have without treatment? My voice cracked. We need to start chemotherapy immediately. Next week. Dr. Morrison's eyes held that practiced sympathy doctor's perfect over years of delivering death sentences. I remember calling my parents from the parking lot, my silver Honda still running, heat blasting against the February Chicago cold. Mom, it's cancer. Stage 3. I start chemo next Tuesday. Silence stretched between us like an ocean. Connie, baby, that's terrible. But your father and we can't just drop everything. He's got that fishing tournament in Florida and I've got my book club retreat in Sedona. You understand, right? You're strong. You've always been strong. Strong. That word became my curse. I watched other patients shuffle into Dr. Morrison's office the following weeks, hands clutched by worried spouses, mothers, fathers. Meanwhile, I sat alone, scrolling through my startup's code on my laptop, pretending the tears on my screen were just eye strain. My company, Tech Haven, was my only child, my only companion. Needed me alive. The chemo ward smelled like industrial cleaner trying to mask something dying underneath. Nurse Patricia, a black woman in her 50s with kind eyes, settled me into chair 7. First time, honey? I nodded, watching the poison drip into my veins through clear tubing. Around me, a symphony of beeping machines and whispered prayers filled the sterile air. The woman next to me, Mrs. Wright, had her entire family crammed around her chair. 3 generations holding hands, sharing orange slices, telling stories that made her laugh between waves of nausea. I turned away, focusing on my laptop screen. My co-founder Martin had texted, "Board meeting tomorrow. Can you make it?" I typed back yes, though my fingers already felt like they belonged to someone else. That night, hunched over my toilet, I called my parents again. "Mom, the chemo. It's worse than I imagined. Could you maybe..." "Connie, I told you we're busy. Besides, you've got that fancy startup and all that education. You can hire help if you need it." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, at the wallpaper photo of us from 5 years ago at my college graduation, their smiles wide and proud. I hired a nurse aide named Deshaun through an app. 22 years old, college dropout, but his hands were steady when I couldn't stop shaking. "Your family coming tomorrow?" he asked during his second visit. "They're busy," I whispered. He didn't ask again. Martin burst into my apartment at 6 a.m., 3 weeks into treatment. I'd lost 15 pounds and most of my hair. "Connie, wake up. Venture capitalists are pulling out. They heard about your diagnosis. They think you're a liability." I sat up too fast, room spinning, medication bottles clattering off my nightstand. "They can't do that." But they could. And they did. Our lead investor, Gerald Hutchinson, sent a cold email. Given the circumstances regarding Ms. Parker's health situation, Hutchinson Ventures must reconsider its position. I read it 7 times, each word a paper cut. That afternoon, bald from chemotherapy and running on pure spite, I walked into our downtown office. 23 employees looked up from their desks, fear evident in their eyes. "I know what you've heard," I announced, voice steady despite my shaking legs. "Yes, I have cancer. Oh, I'm not dying. And no, we're not folding. We're going to pitch to every investor who'll listen." Martin pulled me aside. Connie, you can barely stand. Then I'll sit while I pitch. Over the next 2 months we pitched 47 firms. 43 said no. 4 said maybe. 1, Melissa Richardson from Quantum Capital, said yes. My mother had lymphoma, she told me, signing the $10 million check. She fought through it while running a restaurant. I see that same fire in you. I called my parents with the good news. That's great, baby, Dad said, distracted. I heard golf commentary in the background. Listen, we're at the course. Can we call you back? They didn't. Month 4 of treatment. My body had become a battlefield, scarred and exhausted. The doctor's latest scan showed the tumors shrinking, a small miracle. I sat in the waiting room alone as always when I saw them. A father cradling his sick daughter, maybe 6 years old, bald like me. He kissed her forehead, whispering promises. Something inside me fractured completely. That night I did something I swore I'd never do. I called my Aunt Renee, my mother's sister, the one my parents had excommunicated over some decade-old grudge about Grandma's jewelry. Connie, baby girl, is that you? Her voice cracked with emotion. I heard about your cancer through the grapevine. I've been trying to reach you, but your mama said you didn't want visitors. The world tilted. She said what? 3 months ago I called her crying, begging for your address so I could come help. She said you specifically told her you wanted to go through this alone, that you were too proud for family interference. Connie, I've been respecting your wishes, but it's been killing me. I hung up and immediately called my mother. How dare you tell Aunt Renee I didn't want help? Connie, watch your tone. We were protecting you from that woman's drama. You had enough on your plate. Protecting me? You left me to die alone. Don't be so dramatic. You're fine now, aren't you? You're always fine. I wasn't fine. I was broken. But broken things, I learned, could be sharpened into weapons. Deshaun found me on my bathroom floor that night, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. Hey, I got you, he murmured, helping me to the couch. Tell me what happened. Between gasps, I explained everything. My parents' abandonment, their lies to my aunt, their complete indifference to my suffering. Deshaun's jaw tightened. My mom pulled similar when I came out. Cut me off completely. That's why I do this work. Taking care of people who got nobody else. Something shifted in me that night. The next morning I called Martin. What if we pivoted Tech Haven's focus? What do you mean? Healthcare navigation apps. Something that connects cancer patients with resources, support systems, volunteer caregivers. Something that makes sure nobody goes through this alone. Silence. Then, that's brilliant. And intensely personal. We spent my last month of chemotherapy rebuilding our entire platform. I interviewed every patient in my treatment center. Mrs. Wright became our beta tester. Nurse Patricia joined our advisory board. Even Deshaun helped design the caregiver interface. My parents called once during this time on my birthday, leaving a 30-second voicemail. Happy birthday, baby. Love you. Call us when you're free. I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. When my final chemo session ended in June, Nurse Patricia hugged me. You're gonna beat this, Connie. I feel it in my bones. I had. My latest scans came back clear. But the scars, visible and invisible, would never fully heal. August brought my first cancer-free month and Tech Haven's explosive growth. Our healthcare navigation app, which we renamed Haven Connect, launched to immediate acclaim. The New York Times ran a feature. Cancer survivor builds empire from hospital bed. Forbes called me the most resilient founder under 30. Venture capital firms who'd previously rejected us now begged for meetings. But success felt hollow. I'd gained my health and my company but lost my family. Or rather realized I'd never truly had them. Aunt Renee became my chosen family. She flew from Atlanta every weekend, teaching me to cook her famous gumbo, sharing stories about my mother's childhood that painted a complicated picture. Your mama wasn't always cold, Renee explained one Saturday. She changed after your grandmother died. Closed herself off. Started measuring everything in transactions. That doesn't excuse what she did. No, baby. It doesn't. I'm just giving you context, not justification. Context mattered less than consequences. My therapist, Dr. Williams, asked during our weekly session, "Have you considered that your parents might be incapable of the love you need?" The question landed like a physical blow. What do I do with that? You grieve what you'll never have. Then you build something better. Martin noticed my growing confidence during board meetings. You're different now. Harder. Is that bad? No. Just observing. The old Connie would have apologized for having cancer. This Connie doesn't apologize for anything. He was right. Suffering had carved away my desperation for approval, leaving something stronger, sharper. October 17th. That's when everything changed again. I was in our new downtown office. 15,000 square feet, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Miss Parker? This is Jonathan Weiss from Health Tech Innovations. We'd like to discuss acquiring Haven Connect. I nearly dropped my coffee. The meeting happened 3 days later in a conference room that cost more than my first apartment. Jonathan, silver-haired and shark-eyed, slid a folder across the marble table. Martin sat beside me, his hand subtly steadying my shaking knee under the table. We're prepared to offer $50 million for complete acquisition of Haven Connect. You'd stay on as creative director for 2 years at a substantial salary. $50 million. The number echoed in my skull. I thought about the nights I'd coded through chemo fog. The patients who'd trusted me with their stories. Deshawn who'd held my hair while I vomited. I need to think about it. Of course. Take 48 hours. That night, Aunt Renee made her gumbo while I paced my apartment. What's there to think about, baby? You built something from ashes. Now it's worth millions. That's your reward. It feels wrong. Like selling a piece of my survival. Then don't sell. But if you do, remember, money ain't evil. It's a tool. Question is, what you gonna build with it? I called Martin at midnight. Let's negotiate. I want $50 million, but I want to keep creative control for 5 years, not 2. And I want them to maintain the free tier for low-income patients. Forever. He laughed. You drive a hard bargain for someone who almost died 6 months ago. Maybe that's why I can. The negotiation took 3 weeks of brutal back and forth. Jonathan tried every angle to reduce the price or the terms. But I'd learned something through chemotherapy. When you've stared down death, corporate intimidation loses its power. Miss Parker, you're being unreasonable. Mr. Weiss, I'm being fair. Your analyst showed you our user growth. 50,000 active users in 4 months. You're getting a bargain at $50 million. Finally, on November 9th, we signed. Martin popped champagne in the conference room. Our employees cheered. I felt numb. That evening, alone in my apartment, I transferred money to everyone who'd helped me survive. Deshawn got $200,000 and a full scholarship offer to finish his nursing degree. He cried on my doorstep. Connie, I can't. You can. You saved my life when my own parents wouldn't. This is just math. Nurse Patricia got $100,000 to start the cancer patient support nonprofit she'd always dreamed about. Mrs. Wright's grandchildren got college funds. Aunt Renee got the down payment on her dream house in Savannah. I kept $10 million for myself in investments, donated $5 million to cancer research, and put the rest in trust funds and charitable foundations. Martin asked, "When are you telling your parents?" I'm not. But the universe had other plans. November 15th, Bloomberg ran the headline, 28-year-old cancer survivor sells startup for $50 million. By noon, it had spread to CNN, CNBC, every major outlet. My phone exploded with notifications. And among them, finally, after 9 months of silence, Connie, it's Mom. We saw the news. Congratulations, baby. We're so proud. Call us back. They called 17 times that first day. Left 12 voicemails. My father, who hadn't texted me once during chemotherapy, sent a novel. Connie, your mother and I always knew you were destined for greatness. We never doubted you for a second. We'd love to celebrate with you. Maybe we could fly to Chicago this weekend? Or you could come home to Memphis. We've been thinking about you constantly. I sat on my couch, reading the messages with clinical detachment. Aunt Renee watched from the kitchen doorway. You gonna respond? No. But they didn't stop. My mother called Martin's number, my company line, even tried to reach Deshawn through social media. On day 3, a massive flower arrangement arrived at my apartment. The card read, "To our brilliant daughter. Love conquers all. Mom and Dad." I threw it in the dumpster. That night, my mother found my therapist's office number somehow and called Dr. Williams, pretending to be concerned about my mental health. Dr. Williams called me immediately. Connie, your mother just tried to get me to breach confidentiality. She claimed you were having a breakdown and needed family intervention. What did you tell her? That she should contact you directly if she's concerned. And that I couldn't confirm or deny you were my patient. The invasion felt violating. I changed my number, but they found the new one within days. My father left a voicemail. Connie, we're your parents. We deserve to be part of your success. We raised you, gave you everything. This cold shoulder treatment is disrespectful and cruel. I played it for Aunt Renee. She shook her head. The audacity is breathtaking. Where were they when you were fighting for your life? They showed up unannounced on November 23rd, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. My doorman called. Miss Parker, there's a Mr. and Mrs. Parker here claiming to be your parents? My heart stopped. Don't let them up. But their voices echoed through the phone. Connie, baby, please. We flew all the way from Memphis. Just give us 5 minutes. I went downstairs. Hadn't seen them in almost a year. My mother looked the same. Designer clothes, perfect makeup, not a hair out of place. My father wore his expensive golf jacket. They looked prosperous, healthy, completely untouched by the suffering I'd endured. Connie. My mother moved for a hug. I stepped back. No. Baby, don't be like that. We know we should have visited more during your treatment, but we're here now. We want to be part of your life. No. You want to be part of my life now. Not when I was bald and vomiting. Not when I thought I was dying. Now when there's money involved. My father's face hardened. That's unfair. We were giving you space to fight. We knew you were strong enough. You told Aunt Renee I didn't want visitors. You lied to keep away the only person who actually tried to help me. My mother's practiced sympathy cracked. Renee is toxic. We were protecting you. From love. From support. From someone who actually gives a damn. Watch your mouth, Connie. We're still your parents. Biology isn't the same as family. You were never there when it mattered. They left threatening to contest something, though I never figured out what. That night I blocked their numbers. Aunt Renee held me while I cried. You did the right thing, baby. Then why does it hurt so much? Thanksgiving week brought unexpected support. A journalist named Tasha Williams from Essence magazine called. Miss Parker, I'm working on a piece about successful Black women entrepreneurs. I'd love to feature you. We met at a coffee shop in Hyde Park. Tasha, around 40 with natural hair and sharp eyes, saw through my practiced corporate smile immediately. What's the real story? not the press release version. Something about her directness cracked me open. I told her everything. The cancer, the abandonment, the lies, my parents' sudden reappearance. She listened without judgment, taking notes. Would you let me write this? The real version. I hesitated. It's messy. It doesn't have a neat bow. The best stories never do. And women need to hear it. Especially Black women who've been taught to sacrifice everything for family, even when that family doesn't deserve it. The article ran December 5th. The Price of Success. One woman's journey from cancer ward to boardroom without family. It went viral immediately. My phone exploded with messages from strangers sharing their own stories of family betrayal and survival. 3 television shows requested interviews. My parents' church friends started calling them out on Facebook. My mother's book club dropped her. Martin showed me the social media reactions. You've started a movement, Connie. But I hadn't meant to. I just told the truth. That evening, my parents released a statement through their pastor. We're heartbroken by our daughter's characterization of our relationship. We've always loved and supported her. Her illness was difficult for the entire family and we coped in our own ways. We pray for reconciliation. The statement backfired spectacularly. Aunt Renee posted screenshots of their texts refusing to visit me during chemotherapy. Deshawn gave an interview describing how he'd found me alone and sobbing after every treatment. Nurse Patricia told reporters, "In 15 years I've never seen a patient go through cancer completely alone by choice." Connie Parker's parents were absent when she needed them most. My parents' neighbors, their colleagues, even their pastor eventually turned against them. Someone leaked that they'd been bragging about my startup success at their country club while I was still in treatment, claiming they'd helped fund it. I'd never taken $1 from them. The Memphis newspaper ran an editorial, "When success comes without family support." My mother tried one final approach. She showed up at Aunt Renee's new house in Savannah on Christmas Eve. Renee called me immediately. "She's on my porch crying, claiming you've ruined their reputation." What did you tell her? That reputation is what you're known for, character is who you are, and she's confusing the two. Then I shut the door. I laughed for the first time in weeks. I love you, Aunt Renee. I love you too, baby. You're my daughter now in every way that matters. On New Year's Eve, I hosted a party in my new penthouse. Martin, Deshawn, Aunt Renee, Mrs. Wright, Nurse Patricia. Everyone who'd actually shown up when life was falling apart. At midnight, we toasted not to new beginnings, but to the found family we'd chosen. My phone buzzed. Another message from my father. "Connie, this has gone on long enough. We're your parents. You owe us respect and a share of your success." I deleted it without reading it completely. Then I blocked them on every platform. They taught me an invaluable lesson. Some people only love what you can do for them, never who you are. 6 months later, I sat in Dr. Morrison's office for my regular checkup. "Still cancer-free, Connie. You're officially in remission." I'd heard those words before, but they landed differently now. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. Haven Connect had grown to 500,000 users. We'd launched in 15 countries. My foundation had funded 40 cancer patients' treatment costs. But the real success was smaller, quieter. It was Sunday dinners at Aunt Renee's, her gumbo recipe finally mastered. It was Deshawn graduating nursing school with honors, me and Martin cheering in the audience. It was Mrs. Wright's grandchildren sending me their college acceptance letters. It was Nurse Patricia's nonprofit serving its 100th patient. It was the family I'd chosen, not the one I'd been given. My parents made one final attempt in March. A lawyer's letter demanding financial support for their retirement, given their role in my upbringing. My lawyer responded with a single sentence. Miss Parker owes nothing to individuals who abandoned her during a life-threatening illness. I never heard from them again. Some people asked if I felt guilty. I didn't. Guilt requires owing someone something, and I'd paid every debt the moment I'd survived without them. The little girl who'd craved her parents' approval had died in that chemotherapy chair. The woman who'd emerged didn't need validation from people who'd only loved her conditionally. Last week, a young woman with lymphoma reached out through Haven Connect. "I'm scared," she wrote. "And my family isn't helping." I met her at a coffee shop, took her hand and said, "You're not alone anymore. I promise." That promise meant more than $50 million ever could. Sometimes the family you're born into is just a starting point. The real family, the one that matters, is the one you build from the ashes of who you had to become to survive. And I'd built something beautiful.